Only in America can someone take a perfectly functional house, spend 40 grand fixing problems no one had, and somehow make it worse. And if you think that's the peak of financial chaos, oh, we haven't even opened the toolbox yet. 1. A homeowner kicking off a renovation by proudly demolishing the supporting wall that kept the second floor from expressing its gravitational freedom managed to create the rare spectacle of a house attempting a slow-motion collapse while the owner celebrated opening up the space, as if physics were merely a design suggestion. The man financed the entire project with a home improvement loan he obtained by confidently assuring the bank that nothing could possibly go wrong, which is always the precise moment the universe begins drafting a rebuttal. Contractors later arrived to find the living room sagging like a depressed hammock, and the owner insisted the slanted ceiling added character, even as furniture tilted at angles usually seen on malfunctioning carnival rides. The repair estimate exceeded the home's actual value, cementing the renovation as a stunning example of how one person's dream of modern aesthetics became a structural cry for help. 2. A woman excitedly paying contractors to convert her perfectly normal bathroom into a full rainforest experience achieved something remarkable. She created the wettest, moldiest, most botanically confused room in the zip code by installing mist machines, humidity boosters, and a skylight that immediately leaked, all financed through a personal loan. She described as an investment in serenity, though serenity quickly evaporated when mushrooms began sprouting from the grout like freeloading spa guests. The constant moisture warped cabinets, shorted outlets, and turned the floor into a slip and slide for unsuspecting visitors, while the homeowner defended the renovation by claiming the jungle aesthetic was meant to feel alive, which became uncomfortably true after insects began treating the space like a tropical timeshare. The entire project was eventually removed by professionals wearing respirators, a sure sign that nature had officially won the renovation battle. 3. A suburban dad deciding to install a homemade indoor sauna using plywood, optimism, and a complete lack of understanding of fire codes created the architectural equivalent of a slow cooker for humans. Financed by an absurdly high-interest store credit line he opened during a moment of unearned confidence, the sauna heated unevenly, producing one corner hot enough to toast bagels, while the opposite corner felt like a lukewarm DMV lobby. The dad refused professional help, insisting that humidity is just personality for air, until the sauna's wiring finally melted and filled the house with a smell best described as burning ambition. Firefighters later described the setup as a wooden microwave, and the insurance adjuster took one look before scheduling an immediate lunch break. The sauna was dismantled, but the loan payments remained, creating the perfect metaphor for the American DIY spirit. The heat may fade, but the financial consequences always linger. 4. A homeowner who impulsively installed a glass floor over the basement, convinced it would look futuristic, instead achieved the ambiance of a crime scene exhibit. Financed through a second-hand personal loan with terms so predatory they may as well have included claws. The transparent floor offered visitors the unique discomfort of looking down and seeing abandoned storage bins, forgotten holiday decor, and a laundry basket full of unmatched socks illuminated like museum artifacts. Worse, the glass wasn't tempered for structural loads, meaning every step produced ominous creaks that suggested the floor was reconsidering its life choices. Guests avoided the area entirely, treating it like a portal to disappointment, and contractors warned the homeowner that the installation could shatter under something as simple as a dropped remote. Eventually, the renovation was replaced with traditional flooring, but the memory of a see-through domestic abyss lived on as a testament to the danger of funding futuristic dreams with very non-futuristic understanding of materials. 5. A man who decided his kitchen needed a rustic vibe achieved the exact opposite of charm by installing faux barnwood panels made of particle board so flimsy they warped at the sight of steam. This was financed using a store credit plan advertised as budget-friendly, which really meant financial quicksand. And within weeks, the panels began bubbling and peeling, giving the kitchen the same aesthetic as a cardboard box caught in a drizzle. Visitors politely asked whether the walls were still under construction, ignoring the homeowner's confident declaration that imperfections were part of the farmhouse look, even though actual farmhouses typically avoid melting. The final disaster struck when a panel detached mid-meal and landed directly onto a pot of simmering soup, instantly transforming dinner into a high-fiber regret. The man eventually removed the panels, but the loan repayments remained, forcing him to enjoy the long-term rustic charm of fiscal responsibility. 6. A couple attempting to install a built-in aquarium as a wow factor centerpiece created the exact wow factor they didn't want when the tank burst within hours of completion, flooding the living room with a tidal wave of expensive fish and water that smelled faintly of oceanic despair. Financed through an aggressively cheerful pet store credit program, the project featured an oversized tank resting on a stand that was clearly built for a much smaller commitment. And when the wait finally won, it introduced the homeowners to the surprising speed at which water can ruin absolutely everything. Exotic fish flopped across hardwood floors like slippery protesters. Furniture floated into new, less desirable positions, and the homeowners tried to defend their choices by claiming setbacks are part of the creative journey, although no one could identify the part of the journey where the TV drifted into the hallway. Cleanup crews called it memorable, which is rarely a compliment. 7. A homeowner proudly unveiling a backyard pizza oven built entirely from non-heat-resistant decorative stones demonstrated a stunning level of confidence in materials that clearly never agreed to the job. Financed using a home improvement loan that probably deserved hazard pay, the oven reached optimal temperature exactly once before the stones cracked, popped, and launched fragments in every direction like Mediterranean shrapnel. Neighbors reported hearing what sounded like a fireworks show themed around poor decision-making, and the homeowner attempted to salvage the disaster by insisting the oven simply needed to break in, though the only thing breaking was everything involved. Eventually, the structure crumbled into a sad, uneven mound resembling an archaeological dig dedicated to failed carbs, leaving the loan payments as the only durable feature of the renovation. 8. A man deciding to install a home theater by mounting speakers directly into his ceiling joists using industrial-strength glue instead of brackets created a sound system that functioned more like a countdown to disaster. Financed on a same-day credit offer that preyed on enthusiasm, the speakers initially held, until summer heat softened the adhesive and sent them crashing to the floor one by one like disgruntled stage performers. The homeowner insisted the drops added dramatic effect, as though guests were meant to interpret falling electronics as immersive storytelling. But most people reacted by flinching and reevaluating their friendship. Repairs cost more than a competent installation would have, and the glue left stains on the ceiling that resembled abstract art titled "Gravity Always Wins." In the end, the home theater achieved cinematic drama, just not the kind intended. 9. A woman who transformed her attic into a Zen sanctuary by covering the entire floor with loose sand financed the project through a personal loan labeled miscellaneous, which is appropriate because the entire renovation lived in the miscellaneous category of human choices. The sand attracted insects, clogged vents, and migrated through the house like a tiny beige invasion, coating stairwells and carpets with the stubborn enthusiasm of a cat that refuses to be ignored. Guests entering the attic were greeted with the overwhelming feeling of being trapped inside a malfunctioning hourglass, and the homeowner insisted it was calming, though the constant crunching underfoot created a soundscape more reminiscent of walking through a giant bowl of stale cereal. Eventually, professionals were hired to remove the sand, discovering it weighed enough to threaten the structural integrity of the entire house, proving the renovation was only Zen for the bank collecting monthly payments. 10. A homeowner attempting to build a DIY loft bed to maximize space created a monument to structural overconfidence when the platform collapsed the first night under the weight of a single mattress, dropping everything and everyone below with the grace of a collapsing stage prop. Financed on a store credit card with interest rates sharp enough to cut steel, the loft had been constructed from bargain lumber held together by a handful of screws and an unwavering belief in positive thinking. Guests initially complimented the design, unaware that the supports wobbled like a shopping cart with commitment issues. When the collapse finally happened, it took out a lamp, a chair, and part of the renter's dignity, leaving behind a pile of splinters and a reminder that architecture should never rely on wishful thinking. The repair cost quadrupled the original expense, a poetic return on investment for ignoring basic carpentry. 11. A couple determined to create a luxury pet suite for their dog, installed custom wallpaper, track lighting, and a tiny chandelier in a former closet, all financed through a pet store credit program aggressively marketed toward people who misunderstand their financial priorities. The chandelier alone cost more than a month of mortgage payments, and while the dog remained blissfully indifferent, The wallpaper began peeling within days thanks to its total incompatibility with humidity, pet hair, and canine levels of enthusiasm. Visitors struggled to compliment the room without acknowledging that it looked like Versailles for someone who eats socks, and the homeowners insisted it was an investment in comfort, although no one could identify which creature was supposed to feel comfortable knowing money had been set on fire in decorative form. By the end of the year, the room returned to storage use, but the loan payments lingered like a ghost wearing designer pet accessories. 12. A man who converted his garage into a bachelor sports lounge installed 3 giant TVs, neon lighting, and a makeshift bar, all built atop an electrical system that hadn't been updated since the 1970s and was now tasked with supporting enough voltage to light a small airport. Financed through multiple overlapping credit lines that resembled a financial obstacle course, the lounge operated smoothly until game day, when all 3 TVs and the fridge attempted to turn on simultaneously and instantly plunge the house into a blackout, dramatic enough to provoke cheering from disappointed fans. Electricians later discovered scorch marks inside the panel and wiring that looked like it had personally given up on continuing life. The renovation was ultimately dismantled, not because of safety filings, but because the man couldn't justify paying interest on a space that only worked when appliances took turns breathing. 13. A homeowner aiming to bring nature inside installed a real tree trunk as a central column in the living room without drying, treating, or sealing the wood, a decision financed through an unsecured loan that should have come with a therapist. The trunk slowly began to rot from the inside, releasing beetles, termites, and other woodland tenants into the home like a tiny, coordinated uprising. Guests were routinely startled by insects emerging from knots in the wood, creating the ambiance of a cabin-themed horror attraction, while the homeowner insisted the presence of bugs was part of the natural cycle, though most people prefer their natural cycles outdoors. The column eventually split, shedding bark onto the couch and threatening to collapse under its own decaying weight, at which point professionals were hired to remove what was now essentially a very expensive compost sculpture. 14. A man determined to install a home bar with a pro-level tap system drilled directly into a load-bearing beam to run his beer lines, financing the project through a promotional brewery credit that heavily encouraged dreams not supported by basic engineering. The beam weakened immediately, causing the ceiling to sag in a way that politely announced structural distress, while the tap system leaked continuously, transforming the floor into a sticky brewery swamp. His proud declaration that he had created the perfect party space was undercut by the unmistakable scent of stale beer and the faint groaning noises of a house reconsidering its relationship with gravity. Contractors later informed him the damage repairs would cost more than a used car, making this the only bar in town where the price of admission was existential regret. 15. A woman attempting to create a light and airy vibe installed skylights without checking the roof pitch, producing windows that served primarily as rain collectors with the efficiency of bargain bin aquarium filters. Financed through an online lender, promising fast approval and slow financial pain, the skylights dripped during storms, streamed during heavy storms, and fully surrendered during one memorable downpour that transformed the bedroom into a nature exhibit. Guests described the sound inside as aggressively hydrating, and the woman defended the renovation by claiming the leaks proved she had brought the outdoors in, though most people prefer not to bring weather into their sheets. Mold blossomed around the frames like enthusiastic botanical graffiti, and roofers eventually replaced the entire section, leaving behind only a warning about mixing Pinterest inspiration with actual construction. 16. A homeowner beginning a renovation by installing a ceiling fan roughly 3 inches below the actual ceiling, mounted on a rod so short it looked like the fan was being punished, created a spectacle of spinning futility that circulated exactly 0 air while radiating the confident aura of someone who clearly skipped the instruction manual. Financed through a store credit plan that practically hissed, "Don't do this," the fan wobbled against the drywall like it was trying to escape its own installation, producing dull thuds every time it turned, and shedding plaster snowflakes onto the furniture in a gentle reminder of the homeowner's decision-making. Guests asked whether the fan was decorative, since functionality was clearly not part of the budget, and the homeowner insisted it just needed to loosen up, which is a charming sentiment usually reserved for middle school dances, not motorized blades scraping a ceiling. The fan was ultimately removed, but the gouges remained like signatures of enthusiasm unaccompanied by competence. 17. A man upgrading his backyard deck by coating it with a high-tech marine sealant meant for boats accidentally transformed the surface into the slipperiest square footage in the county, creating a deck that looked normal but behaved like a corporate liability training simulation. Financed through a hardware store loan he accepted after hearing the word premium. The coating hardened into a glossy film that rejected shoe traction, human dignity, and the laws of friction, sending visitors skating in slow, helpless arcs toward the railing. The homeowner defended the renovation by claiming the deck now had European charm, which was an unexpected way to describe a surface that launched a barbecue guest over the steps like a curling stone. Even the family dog refused to step on it, choosing instead to bark at the deck from a distance like it was possessed. Contractors eventually restored the wood, but the neighborhood continued referring to the area as the ice rink that doesn't melt. 18. A couple who installed recessed lighting using bargain basement fixtures from a liquidation sale discovered the lights flickered in a pattern uncanny enough to resemble a haunted Morse code message, which is not typically the ambiance people seek while trying to eat dinner. Financed with a credit card that should have included a warning label, the lights varied wildly in brightness, sometimes glowing like interrogation lamps, and other times dimming to a level that suggested someone owed the room money. Visitors joked that the lights were signaling distress, and an electrician later confirmed that the entire setup violated so many codes it felt like an act of modern art. Despite this, the couple insisted the flickering added mood, though the only mood produced was the exact feeling one gets moments before paranormal activity escalates. Replacing the fixtures cost triple the original budget, cementing the renovation as a testament to the dangers of mixing electricity with clearance pricing. 19. A man believing his living room needed a touch of elegance installed a faux marble fireplace surround made from peel-and-stick vinyl, which he financed through a personal line of credit he justified as investing in luxury. Though the only thing luxurious was the speed with which the vinyl peeled away from the heat, curling back like it was trying to flee the fireplace. Within days, the room displayed a patchwork of sagging adhesive rectangles resembling a melting museum exhibit dedicated to questionable choices. Guests politely asked if the renovation was still in progress, and the homeowner insisted the imperfect texture added authenticity, even though the fireplace now looked like it had survived a mild earthquake and a medium-sized toddler. The final blow came when the vinyl began emitting a faint plastic smell every time the fireplace was used, transforming cozy nights into scented reminders that shortcuts in faux marble rarely end in victory. 20. A woman determined to install a home elevator for convenience purchased a second-hand model online and built a narrow shaft in the hallway, financing the project with a loan she described as forward-thinking, though hindsight would later win by a landslide. The elevator fit poorly, rattled like it feared movement, and stopped slightly below floor level, forcing riders to perform a small but humiliating hop every time they exited. Family members refused to use it after hearing grinding noises reminiscent of a medieval drawbridge struggling under pressure, and an inspector eventually condemned the entire installation after determining the motor had been designed for lifting pantry goods, not humans. The homeowner insisted the elevator simply had quirks, but quirks usually don't require emergency services to extract someone holding a laundry basket. The shaft was later boarded up, leaving behind a mysterious door that future occupants would assume hid something supernatural rather than merely expensive. 21. A homeowner attempting to create a dramatic staircase runner by attaching individual carpet squares with adhesive instead of using a proper installation method managed to build a stairway that behaved less like flooring and more like a sliding puzzle designed by chaos. Financed through a promotional carpet store loan, the squares gradually loosened, curling upward at random angles, creating tripping hazards so perfectly placed they could have passed inspection for a booby-trapped temple. Visitors gingerly navigated the steps like archaeologists aware that one wrong move might awaken the stairs' thirst for slapstick, while the homeowner defended the look as modular, as though the unpredictability were part of the charm. The real crescendo occurred when the family cat triggered a cascade of sliding squares, each one liberating itself with the enthusiasm of a performer leaving the stage, resulting in a staircase stripped of everything except financial regret. 22. A man inspired by luxury hotels installed a waterfall feature in his foyer without waterproofing anything, financed by a store credit line cheerfully granted to someone who clearly misunderstood the relationship between water and gravity. The moment he turned it on, the waterfall followed its own creative instincts, cascading not into the decorative basin, but across the hardwood floors, under the baseboards, and directly into the crawl space like a determined explorer seeking new territories. The homeowner defended the renovation by saying the water just needed time to find its path. But most paths don't result in warped floors and a foyer that smelled like damp disappointment. Professionals later discovered mold colonies had formed with the speed of opportunistic real estate developers, proving that indoor waterfalls require planning beyond enthusiasm. The feature was ultimately removed, leaving behind rippled flooring that resembled the aftermath of a small but emotionally charged flood. 23. A couple seeking old-world charm installed wrought iron sconces wired by someone who had clearly mistaken electrical work for creative expression, resulting in lights that flickered, hummed, and occasionally sparked like they were attempting to communicate in forbidden languages. Financed through a renovation loan they obtained after binge-watching historical dramas, the sconces were mounted crookedly, casting shadows that made guests feel as though the room housed secrets best left alone. An electrician later confirmed the wiring had been spliced together using mismatched components and electrical tape that appeared to give up halfway through its own responsibilities. The couple maintained the flickering added authenticity, although authentic medieval lighting generally lacks the ability to ignite walls. The fix required gutting half the wiring, leaving behind a much safer lighting system and a financial reminder that historical ambiance does not include unplanned fire rituals. 24. A homeowner, transforming a spare room into a recording studio, used mattress foam from a discount warehouse as soundproofing, financing the upgrade through a personal loan that claimed to encourage creativity while actually encouraging bankruptcy. The foam was stapled to the walls in a way that suggested panic rather than craftsmanship, and within weeks the material began to crumble, shedding yellow flakes that coated the room like a slow, itchy snowfall. Worse, the foam absorbed odors with supernatural enthusiasm, producing a scent reminiscent of warm tires and broken dreams, forcing anyone entering the room to question whether art was worth inhaling whatever this was. Experts later warned the foam was extremely flammable, turning the studio into a fire hazard that doubled as an allergy generator. The entire room was eventually stripped, leaving behind pockmarked walls and a financial legacy far louder than anything that had ever been recorded there. 25. A man convinced his garage needed smart home upgrades, installed motion sensors capable of detecting everything except actual motion, a system financed through an installment plan that charged more interest than moral support. The sensors activated randomly, turning the lights on in the middle of the night and off during active tasks, creating an environment ideal for slapstick injuries but not for automotive maintenance. The garage door opener frequently malfunctioned, interpreting shadows as security threats and refusing to open for the homeowner while happily lifting itself for passing neighborhood cats. Technicians diagnosed the installation as aggressively incorrect, a phrase rarely applied to wiring unless someone has truly committed to misunderstanding instructions. The homeowner defended the system as ahead of its time, though most futuristic innovations don't trap their owners outside in the rain while allowing raccoons privileged access. The entire setup was removed, but the monthly payments remained stubbornly futuristic. 26. A couple attempting to add charm to their kitchen installed vintage-style open shelving using brackets that were aesthetically pleasing but structurally equivalent to mood swings, a renovation financed through a credit card reward program that rewarded nothing but stress. The shelves bowed under the weight of anything heavier than optimism, sending plates sliding off in slow, tragic avalanches that surprised no one except the homeowners, who insisted they had tested the brackets by placing a single decorative mug on them. Friends avoided standing near the shelves altogether, adopting the cautious posture of people unsure whether gravity had clocked in for the day. The final disaster occurred when an entire shelf collapsed during a dinner party, sending glassware shattering across the kitchen like confetti celebrating poor craftsmanship. The homeowners eventually reinstalled traditional cabinetry, but the memory of airborne dishware lingered as a testament to the dangers of valuing aesthetics over physics. 27. A homeowner who wanted the bathroom to feel like a high-end spa installed a steam shower without insulating the surrounding walls, producing an unintentional sauna for the entire house. Financed through a wellness loan marketed toward people who should absolutely read the fine print, the shower leaked steam into the drywall, attic, and hall closet, slowly transforming the upper floor into the world's saddest rainforest. Clothes mildewed, wallpaper peeled in strips like it was trying to escape the property, and family members complained that the hallway always felt emotionally damp. The contractor who inspected the disaster described the moisture damage as ambitious, which is a polite way of saying the house was actively dissolving. Repairs involved gutting multiple rooms, leaving behind a much drier home and a financial burden heavy enough to counteract any of the intended relaxation benefits. 28. A man looking to add drama installed floor lighting throughout his entryway using pathway lights intended exclusively for gardens, powered by solar panels placed indoors where sunlight visited as rarely as his better judgment. Financed by an aggressively optimistic home improvement loan, the lights glowed faintly for approximately 8 minutes each evening before surrendering to darkness, creating a nightly ambiance best described as tragic dimming. Guests entering the home had to rely on their own phone flashlights while the homeowner cheerfully insisted the system would charge over time, which is not how photons work. Eventually, he added extension cords in an attempt to boost the lights, resulting in a tangled display that resembled a festive fire hazard. Electricians ultimately removed the installation, leaving behind a hallway that was at least dark in a normal way rather than a philosophically confusing one. 29. A woman who wanted her home to feel more open removed every interior door except the front one, a renovation financed through a personal loan that absolutely should have required a psychological questionnaire. The resulting floor plan created a living experience that blended the charm of an art gallery with the privacy of a bus station, offering guests an intimate and unavoidable look into every daily activity. Despite complaints from visiting relatives, the homeowner insisted the openness improved energy flow, although the only thing flowing freely now was conversation no one meant to overhear. Heating and cooling systems rebelled immediately, creating temperature zones ranging from Arctic tundra to indoor desert. In the end, several doors were reinstalled, but not before everyone who visited had learned far more about household dynamics than anyone should ever be forced to discover. 30. A homeowner upgrading the backyard patio by pouring concrete himself and misreading the mixture ratio so dramatically that the final product resembled a cracked brownie created a surface that slowly crumbled under the weight of disappointment. Financed through a home improvement credit plan that probably should have included a tutorial, the concrete set unevenly, forming peaks and valleys that confused patio furniture and ankles alike. Guests approached the patio cautiously, stepping around weak spots that sounded hollow, like the ground was politely requesting they reconsider. The homeowner attempted to defend the look as textured, though texture generally implies intentionality instead of structural confusion. Eventually, the patio had to be jackhammered and repoured, doubling the project cost and solidifying the renovation as an enduring example of the phrase "measure once, regret twice." 31. A man aiming to create a statement wall covered an entire living room with mirrored tiles purchased from an online liquidation sale, unaware that each tile reflected light at slightly different angles, producing a dizzying kaleidoscope effect that made visitors feel as though they'd walked into the waiting room of a hallucination. Financed through a buy now, pay later plan that practically whispered danger, the wall reflected sunlight with chaotic enthusiasm, blinding anyone who dared sit on the wrong end of the room and heating the space to levels usually associated with greenhouses. Pets refused to enter, children covered their eyes, and adults questioned whether the decor was a prank. After multiple complaints of headaches and disorientation, the mirrors were removed, leaving behind adhesive residue and a financial statement that reflected only the permanence of unwise ambition. If this parade of home renovation disasters taught us anything, it's that imagination is dangerous. Drop your favorite disaster in the comments, vote on the dumbest, and maybe hit subscribe for more chaos.